Ladies and gents, welcome to the channel. What I've got right here is the ideal first knife for a child. You know, knowing how to use and care for a knife is kind of a rite of passage that every kid needs to experience. And my son has been wanting to make a knife with me for a while, which is really cool. You know, having kids that are interested in your hobbies is an absolute blessing and kind of instills a sense of pride into you. And he's finally at that age where he can actually help along with the knife making process. He can learn how to use some of the tools in the shop and just some of the safety aspects of being in the shop and around power tools as well. So it'll be a good experience for him, and it'll be a nice bonding time for both of us. And most importantly, he's old enough now and trustworthy enough now to not just immediately cut his fingers off. So he's a good kid. You know, when I was planning on getting him his first knife, I was really torn between getting him just a cheap beater knife, you know, knowing full well how I treated knives at his age, or helping him make his own knife, something we both be proud of, and one that will have some sentimental value down the road. You know, I know that my first knives are definitely not here with us still. I definitely broke a few knives in my youth. But in the end, I decided to make one with them, and we got to work designing the best possible knife for a first timer. Now, going into this project, I had a few very specific goals. First, I really wanted to set him up for success as much as possible. You know, that meant a manageable blade length and weight, a significant finger guard, and an ergonomic full-length handle. I also want to get this knife for him, and I want it to be an heirloom, something that will always have use, value, not just a knife that you would eventually grow out of. In the end, this is the design that I came up with, and there was actually quite a bit of thought that went into each design aspect of this knife to ensure not only that it would be an ideal knife to learn on, but also be a great knife as he grows, even well into adulthood. Starting at the blade, I wanted to use a modified sheep's foot shape. It's a very strong shape. And this is in 1/8 inch 1084 high carbon steel. The design still has an obvious tip. It's got a slight belly and then a nice flat section here. Now, some people think that kids' knives shouldn't have tips at all, and I just couldn't disagree more. You know, neutering a knife doesn't teach them how to properly use and respect the most dangerous aspect of the blade, and it could lead to bad habits down the road. So I definitely wanted to have a knife that incorporated a tip. I just didn't want it to be unnecessarily acute. You definitely wouldn't want, you know, a stiletto or a dagger. That would be completely impractical and unnecessarily dangerous for a first timer. If you notice at the tip, it is set slightly forward, and this allows easy manipulation of the tip. And because there's only a slight belly, the angle coming to the point is quite large. This is going to reduce penetration performance, but it's also going to significantly increase the durability of the tip. You know, it is a very stout blade. The shorter blade length will make it safer to handle for little hands. It's going to be easier to control. It's going to maintain that lower weight and reduce the shock if he ever decides to chop or stab at something. A 1/8 inch stock is going to provide all the strength and durability he needs. The high saber grind is an excellent compromise between cutting performance and durability. The spine is left completely straight, so it's comfortable in a variety of grips. There's jimping at the spine for increased traction in a pinch grip, and I did leave the spine at a very crisp and sharp 90-degree angle, so it can scrape wood and cast just a wonderful spark off of a ferro rod. If you grab yourself a piece of fat wood, you can use this to make shavings very quickly, and like I said, if you hit this on a ferro rod, it is just going to shower in sparks. I was kind of torn between leaving this sharp or maybe just leaving one section sharp and rounding off the edges. I know that rounded edges are more comfortable for extended periods of use. However, I think that he'll get more utility and more use out of the sharper spine angle. Moving down to the handle, you'll notice the elongated guard and lack of any significant ricasso. And this really lets you choke up on the grip and get incredibly close to the blade for fine work while ensuring safety from slippage. This also has a wider than normal scale set. It really lets you get a secure and comfortable grip. Usually I'd probably make them a little bit thinner for EDC, especially on a smaller knife like this, but The larger handles are going to be more comfortable and eliminate hot spots. You'll also notice that the grip is devoid of any finger grooves. Obviously, as the kid grows, these would only get in the way of his growing hands and make hot spots. So the grip is completely universal, no matter whose hands are on this knife. Think of it kind of like a well done hatchet handle. It just fits in your hand perfectly. You might notice that there is some slight texturing or jimping on the front of the scales. That's just to increase traction. I also went with the natural 400 grit finish, so it's not overly slippery. These scales are Lacewood, but I know how much fun it is to customize your stuff down the road, so they're completely detachable. They're not glued on at all. They pop right off. And I'm sure that as he grows up, he'll have fun designing and making his own scales for this knife. The wood, the American flag pin, those were all his choice. He had fun picking out through my handle selection. On the handle portion of the blank, I did a lot of relief cuts or kind of speed holes, as I told my kid. In addition to the decorative file work on the spine, these do a really great job of reducing weight while not interfering with overall strength. At first, I was somewhat conflicted on whether I wanted this knife to be in stainless or in high carbon. It's obviously a hotly debated topic and it's kind of been beaten to death. So I won't talk about the pros and the cons between the two. But for a first knife, I do truly believe that a high carbon steel is essential. First of all, high carbon steel can teach you a few lessons. There's that immediate cause and effect in the knife care for high carbon. If you use your blade hard, put it away wet, the next day you're going to know that you messed up. It forces you to learn proper knife care, or it will reward you with a rusty shell of its former beauty. Also, learning how to sharpen and maintain a keen edge is just as important. So high carbon, it doesn't hold its edge as long as most stainless knives these days, but high carbon steel is incredibly easy to sharpen, and it will give the new learner ample opportunity to hone his sharpening skills. Lastly, I attach a lanyard to the handle. This one actually fits around his wrist, so it can be an added level of safety for him, but it also makes deployment out of the sheath a lot easier. Speaking of the sheath, he really wanted to do a leather one, mainly so he could stamp his name and do the border. In the knife making process, the one aspect that he sees me do on a regular basis is the sheath making part, because it's the only part that I do inside. So he sees the process in its entirety. He really likes the stamping and all of the texturing and staining of the sheath. However, I wanted him to keep his knife stored in the sheath, and so I decided to make him a hybrid kydex leather belt sheath. This way he gets the retention and moisture resistance of kydex, and then he also gets that traditional look and feel and all his stamping and border that comes with leather. You can see on this sheath, the retention is perfect. You really don't need this extra strap, but that added layer of security for a little guy. It also ensures that while it's on your belt, if you're going through the bush, and we get a lot of sticker bushes out here, so if this catches on something, it's not going to come out at all. Overall, I am incredibly happy with this design. It really far exceeded my goals, and I know it's going to provide a lifetime of companionship for my son. If you stayed with me through all this knife talk, I really appreciate you. Thank you so very much for watching. And if you're in the market for a knife like this, or maybe some other custom blade, get in touch. Cheers. Thanks for watching, guys. Take care.